Now, everyone, last week we did have our last show for CFL, and I was kind of sad there last week as we won't have to be able to talk about it there with everybody else, but I still will talk about it here again in the news section and on my podcast as well, in the CFL podcast here presented by Victory Kia, which you can see on Spotify. But I'm going to mention, though, here just for football-wise, all the 2A and 3A matchups in our area. First, these are the second-round matchups for all the teams. First, looking at 2A, we have 3 teams that advanced in the second round, 2A Division I and Division II. First here, the Ganado Indians will face the Crawford Pirates. They upset the San Saba Armadillos there last week. The game will be at 7 p.m. Friday night at Rockdale's Tiger Stadium. Now, the Refugio Bobcats, they will face the Thorndale Bulldogs. That game will be at 7 p.m. Friday night at LaGrange's Leopard Stadium. And then now, over to 2A Division II, the Shiner Comanches will face the Brackett Tigers. That game will be at 7 p.m. Friday at Jordanton's Indian Stadium. Now, what about over to 3A? Here are the matchups here. And again, first, in 3A Division I, we have 3 teams there that made it in 3A Division I. The Yoakum Bulldogs, they're going to be facing the Fairfield Eagles on Friday night at 7 p.m. in Temple, Texas, at Temple's Wildcat Stadium. Then the Goliad Tigers, who beat the Bishop Badgers there last week 63-16, they're playing the Marion Bulldogs, who had a huge upset there last week over Jordanton. And again, that will be Friday at 7 p.m. at Seguin Matador Stadium there. And then for the Edna Cowboys, they're going to face the San Antonio Cole Cougars. That's a Thursday night game, so the only Thursday night game here in the Crossroads at 7 p.m. in San Marcos at Toyota Rattler Stadium. And then in 3A Division II, the Tidehaven Tigers will face the Dilly Wolves. That game will be Friday, 7 p.m. at Mathis High School. Now, those are all the matches for 2A and 3A, and one of the teams I did mention there and all those was the Edna Cowboys. Again, this team, they were undefeated there in the regular season, has looked the most complete team this year in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes. Here's what Whit Martin and Cornell Norman had to talk about for this team to keep staying focused and locked in through this entire playoff run.
As Coach Mitchell always tells us, it's about us. It's not about the other team. It's about us getting better, playing to our full potential every week. And I think we take that to heart.
Third time's a charm, you know. There's nothing stopping us, and you know when you're where we're at, there's nothing more to it.
Both Martin and Norman want to keep the same mindset heading into their matchup again versus the Cole Cougars. That game, like I mentioned, will be Thursday night in San Marcos, Texas. Now, over in Cuero, they had another huge sign today when they put the pen and paper for Audrey Kremling, who signed to Sul Ross State University. Kremling was second-team All-District back in 2022. First-team All-District, again, all dominant for Cuero's squad last year. She did this in front of her family, friends, and teammates and coaches. Again, congrats to Audrey signing to play at the next level. Now, speaking of Shiner, I mentioned them there in the football field, but the volleyball team lost tonight in the 2A Division II state semifinals versus the Iola Bulldogs. They lost there in straight 3 sets, losing the first set there 25-17, 25-19, and 25-12. Props to the Comanches for having a great year, and they had a lot of people that made it there to All-District and a lot of awards, which I'll mention there later in the week. And finally tonight, you just saw this game end. We had here the Houston Texans play the Dallas Cowboys here in Jerry World. For the Cowboys, it was disappointing. Lost 34-10. Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud didn't have the best of games. He didn't have any touchdown passes, but he threw for 257 yards, and Joe Mixon was huge. 20 carries, 109 yards, 3 touchdowns to help propel the Texans there with the victory. For the Texans, they're now going to be 7-4 this season. Cowboys, they fall to 3-7. They're going to have to figure out what's this next month going to be left here for the Dallas Cowboys. So that's all.